Over the last century, most science fiction movies and books have often led us to see artificial intelligence as a terrifying dystopian invention that will eventually bring about the doom of humanity. However, the debate over whether robots are going to surpass our intelligence and eventually kill us all shall not distract us from the very real threats some minority groups are facing, as they are being overlooked by data scientists and are not being taken into consideration during the phase of machine training. Hello everyone, we are Clémence, Emma, Sherry, and Shoya, and today we want to tell you about one of the most pressing issues that come with an increasing reliance on artificial intelligence. The fact that there is an alarming lack of diversity in the dataset machines are trained with, and that the lack of consideration for some group of individuals is exacerbating and deepening social inequalities in the workplace, at home, and in many other areas of our lives.
The issue of implicit and explicit bias being built in algorithms has been at the heart of debate on artificial intelligence over the last few years, and discussions and research have been focused mainly on the issue of racial and gender bias. However, today we want to shine light on the experience of people with disabilities with artificial intelligence. According to the World Health Organization, over 15% of the world's population lives with some form of disability, so it is crucial to consider these individuals when training machines. However, the literature on the topic of disability and artificial intelligence is rather scarce. To research this topic, we chose an article published in 2019 and read by Professor Nakamura, the chair of disability studies at UC Berkeley, called "My Algorithms Have Determined You Are Not Human: Artificial Intelligence, Machine Learning, Reverse Turing Test, and the Disability Experience." In this article, she makes an account of the current lack of diversity in training data sets and focuses on the potential disastrous effects it could have for disabled people if they keep being misrecognized by AI.
Professor Nakamura emphasized that the current machine training system is not accessible to disabled users and thus does not allow enough input from disabled designers. She highlights the role of Internet users who unconsciously take part in machine training through reverse Turing test. Reverse Turing test is a way for machines to acknowledge us as humans. As this week's podcast, The Box That AI Lives In, suggests, the most prominent example of this practice is the CAPTCHA, which stands for Completely Automated Public Turing Test to tell computers and humans apart. The podcast refutes that 200 million of CAPTCHA are fielded every day by Internet users. Professor Nakamura assessed that more than being a mere security system, the users filling CAPTCHAs also train algorithms and provide data through image recognition. According to Professor Nakamura, the main issue with the increased use of CAPTCHA for machine training is the fact that they are not accessible to some users with disabilities as they often carry images or sound samples. As they are not able to take part in this machine training exercise, their lack of input creates a lack of diversity in the dataset. This is an important limitation that can have implicit bias in the training sets. Moreover, as the reverse Turing test is not accessible, this leads disabled people to be misrecognized by AI, which cannot prove that the user is human. This invalidates the identity of people with disability and deepens the existing social gap between them and able-bodied individuals.
Let's now take a close look at one example to illustrate the potential disastrous effects for disabled people being misrecognized by AI. I'm sure you've all been confronted at least once with a CAPTCHA that was requesting you to click on road signs or vehicles. This data is particularly helpful when creating autonomous vehicle technologies. However, the datasets as well as the people in charge of training machines, which are often able-bodied, might seriously overlook wheelchair users and carry implicit and explicit bias forward. I can let you imagine the consequences of a self-driving car that was never taught that wheelchair users are humans. Nakamura also sheds light on the fact that the absence and the lack of input of disabled users in the datasets might make it impossible for system designers to run tests to determine if the AI will fail to recognize disabled individuals in a variety of contexts. Related to this, in her book Deceitful Media, Simone Natel argues that while the public debate of AI tends to focus on the hypothesis that AI will make computers as intelligent or even more intelligent than people, We also need to consider the cultural and social consequences of it providing the appearance of intelligence. Because after all, is AI ever really intelligent, or is it only intelligent when interacting with its training data? In many human cases, the able-bodied.
While reflecting on potential solutions to this issue, Professor Nakamura recommends that we should incentivize designers and programmers of emerging artificial intelligence and machine learning systems to represent the full diversity of the population. Although Nakamura's piece offers an interesting account of the issues at stake, the article it shows has some limitation, as it does not make any concrete suggestion as to the way technology companies should be held accountable for the lack of diversity in the datasets. The author also abstains from making any sustainable suggestion that could help increase the input by disabled users, such as a creative way to make CAPTCHA accessible.
Throughout this video, we have tackled the lack of consideration for people with disabilities when it comes to machine learning and encoding artificial intelligence, and its disastrous, potentially deadly consequences. How can we ensure that technology companies work towards a full inclusion of minorities and individuals in the planning, implementation, and machine training process? Do you think companies should be penalized for their neglect of the full diversity of their user population? If so, what should these measures be, and who should be responsible for implementing them?